Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my reaction to the Shackles of the Syndicate defensive battle event happening right now in Dragalia Lost. But before we get into a talk about the event, I want to start off with a quick review of the current Summon Showcase. We have a new Summon Showcase coming out. It's a Gala Dragalia remix, and it features two characters who make prominent appearances in this event itself. So of course, I'm talking about Undercover Grace, our new Grace alt, as well as Farren, a new Dragon Drive adventurer. So I'm going to review the banner first in this video, and then we'll go over and show off some gameplay of the event and talk about the event story. So let's get started with the Summon Showcase. It is a Gala Dragalia remix, and this time around the returning Gala adventurer is Mascula, and there's also a Gala Dragon at an appearance right up in the form of Gala Thor. So right off the bat, I'll try to answer the question of whether or not you should summon on this. I would say this is definitely a skip, given the proximity to the 3rd anniversary. We're just a few weeks away at this point, and even though there are likely to be free summons for the 3rd anniversary, it's also likely to be the case that there will be multiple lucrative summon showcases back to back, or dare I say back to back to back, or even 4 in a row. So I think that there are going to be some really good showcases at the end of September, well into October, potentially including some limited time Halloween adventurers in October. So for that reason, I think even if you have a pretty good stash of Wormite saved right now, you might want even more summoning currency than you already have, and I wouldn't give into temptation on this showcase just yet. When I look at what's here, while I do think Grace and Farren both look solid, I think that Mascula is what most attracts me to the showcase if I were considering summoning. The reason for that is, in the flame element and the light element, when it comes to those particular teams, both of them have seen all the uses they will see, as far as we're aware, in the Sinister Dominion. So barring some type of higher level of difficulty, we already have 2 fights where you use flame adventurers. We have Yaldabaoth, of course, that was the first one, and then we had Azura. And the same is true when it comes to using light adventurers. The very first Sinister Dominion, we got to use those in the form of, or against, Lilith, and most recently we're using light adventurers against Iblis. So Surtur, our final boss, neither flame nor light are likely to be any relevance at all against that. They're not going to be the adventurers that are used. However, Surtur, the first phase, is probably going to be flame, so Mascula likely to do pretty well there. So when it comes to Grace and Farren, I think you have to look at it more as, are you okay? Are you on top of existing content and able to clear it? If so, you probably don't need these adventurers. If not, maybe they'll be able to help you out, but I would still say probably better off just waiting a couple weeks to see what the anniversary brings. It could be new endgame content, it could shake things up totally, who knows, but unless you're really in desperate need of these right now, I don't see a strong reason to pull here. And unfortunately, when it comes to Thor, I think that this is the worst thing on the showcase, unfortunately, just because of how Curse of Nihility works with Thor's energy buffs. It completely negates the energy mechanic. It makes him really bad in Sinister Dominion content, even if he's a fine dragon against Legend Tartarus, which is still fairly recent. So that's my overall take on the Summon Showcase. I am going to do a quick glance through at each of the adventurers here, especially the new ones in particular. We'll probably give a little bit of time to Mascula too, but not too much to Thor. And then we'll move over to talk about the event. So here's Undercover Grace. Love her look here. I have to say, it does kind of remind me of a Genshin Impact character, which I don't think is necessarily a coincidence. But anyway, she has a flame sword, which is a weapon type combination, or a weapon element type that I was not expecting for Grace. Her skills include Soul Deprivation, which deals damage and reduces enemy strength, as well as Flame Tongue Unbound, which deals damage to multiple targets and enemies near those targets, and grants the user a defense amp. It can only be used when you have at least 1 stack of Soul Seal, and using this skill consumes all Soul Seals, deals hits and grants amps equal to the number of soul seals consumed. So potentially, if you have multiple soul seals, this could be a way to quickly ramp up defense amps. Continuing on, her co-ability is standard for swords, dragon haste. Chain co-ability, actually kind of nice. You don't see these all that often. There are a few in the flame element, but this is still a rarer chain co-ability. I think that Emma has this. I think, is it Valentine's Hildegard that has it? There's definitely a 5-star with this as well, or something similar. But it's not all that common of a chain co-ability. You see it sometimes, I think, in other elements too, but getting strength or offense of this magnitude is pretty high. You have to be at low HP though, which you need certain mechanics to make that possible. But anyway, as we read on, her abilities include Double-Edged Revelation 2. You get a soul seal when soul deprivation connects with enemies, and that is her first skill. The buff effects are based on the number of soul seals the user has, up to a maximum of 4. So with 1, your damage increases by 10%. 2, attacks damage increases by 15%. 3, it's 20%. And 4, 80%. Wow. But the user takes damage equal to 2% of their max HP for every attack. But that can actually help you to get to a low HP. And then whenever you fire off your second skill, you get, wow. So for 4 stacks, you get pretty good defense amp movement. I think, do you move up to the TM amp stage? I would imagine so. That's pretty interesting. I don't have any adventures yet with team or any kind of defense amps, I should say. No defense amps have strength amps. And so I have not tested it much, but I do understand it to be pretty helpful as far as survival and auto comps. So I think that defense amps actually are a lot better than strength amps. That is my uneducated opinion on this, but that's my impression of it at least. Anyway, the rest of her kit here, Stunner is 100%, and then also team defense amps giving HP regen. It's only for the user though, but still giving HP regen is kind of cool, kind of interesting way to offset taking some damage. I feel like it's pretty true to Grace, although I wonder how she'll play here. I mean, obviously she doesn't have the life shields or life shield amp that I had joked about seeing in this month in Dragalia Lost, but I think this is still an interesting kit. No Dispel though, and no type of Affliction, Scorch Rend. You're going to need to have that covered by other adventures in your team if you want to utilize or incorporate those, so that is something to consider. Moving on to Farren and Little Barb, of course. Farren's worm-binded dragon, or worm-bound dragon. Interesting character, we'll talk more about him when I get to the story. His skills are Mighty Protector, which deals damage to the enemies directly ahead, gives the user a defense amp, and partially fills the user's Dragon Drive gauge. During Dragon Drive, damage will be decreased as the user's HP decreases. So you want to be at a high HP for this. Damage is decreased at lower HP. That's the opposite of our Dragon Drive characters that we're used to, like Belina. Second skill, No Holds Barred, consumes the entire Dragon Drive gauge and restores HP to the user based on the amount consumed. During Dragon Drive, it consumes some of the gauge, deals damage to enemies directly ahead, and partially fills the skill gauge for this skill. Damage will be decreased as the user's HP decreases. So once again, you want to be more at full HP, and this gives you a way of getting to full HP. Notably, not seeing Flash Burn here. That is one of the things that actually would have been relevant on this showcase for Iblis, Master at least. And then co-ability critical rate 10% is fine, that's the dagger standard, and the chain co-ability looks fine, nothing special. Abilities, Wormbound Shell 2, grants the user a Dragon Drive gauge and changes the shapeshift button into a Dragon Drive button. Tapping this button activates their Dragon Drive. Dragon Drive grants the following effects. Your standard attacks and force strikes are changed. The damage is increased as the user's HP increases. So again, opposite of what we're used to here. And they fill the user's Dragon Drive gauge if they connect. So this is actually important. This says that Farren sort of works like Belina and that you could potentially perpetually stay in Dragon Drive. Some characters cannot do that. I guess Urias is an example where your Dragon Drive is eventually going to run out. Your basic attacks, your autos in Dragon Drive form don't refill the form, but in this case they do. And then also when you're in Dragon Drive you get more defense, which should help you keep a higher amount of HP. Presumably, even if you get hit, you're not hurt as badly, so you can heal it off. Hers res 100%, And then Right Hand Dragon 2 gradually fills the user's Dragon Drive gauge automatically when they have a team defense amp. Seems like a potentially very tanky character, but again, no Dispel, no Flash Burn, which would have been super good for players who don't have another option for Iblis. So that's a little unfortunate to see. It's just hard to imagine what kind of team comps are you going to be fitting Farren into. And in particular, against Creeping Corrosion, it's not impossible to maintain a high level of HP, but I guess you do need more healing because of that. It's probably easier to be high HP than low HP. Because with low HP and Creeping Corrosion, you might just die. But I just don't see where this really fits in to current content. And then as we move along here, Gala Mascula is a returning adventure. I think that Gala Mascula is good, but I don't know. Like, I have not played with him directly. I just put him in my backline and he seems good. I know that he's good in invasion events because I've seen the work that he can do there. And if anything, I expect him to be better against the Sinister Dominion than he is against Yagito. So he's good enough for Legends Twins, that much I know. Chain Co ability looks solid, Co ability looks great, and he can incorporate amps, which should be good against Nihility. So yeah, I don't have a very deep analysis to offer of Gala Mascula, but so far he's worked out quite well for me. He also has Dispel in his kit as well. It's on, his second skill here. And I think that pretty much does it for the Summon Showcase. So Gala Thor, not much to say. Thor used to be such a premium dragon, and Nihility just did him wrong, so poor Thor. But anyway, y'all, that is a very quick analysis of the Summon Showcase. Let's go ahead and hop over into the gameplay, and I'll be talking about the story of this event. Alright everybody, I'm here to talk about Shackles of the Syndicate. Hopefully you enjoyed that quick banner analysis, a little shorter than usual, but hopefully you still got what you're looking for. As far as the event itself, Shackles of the Syndicate was an interesting one for me. From a gameplay standpoint, it literally offered just about nothing new. The only new thing is I think what I'm showing off here, the field training, which the defensive map is exactly the same, but the boss you fight at the end happens to be Farren, as opposed to some other boss. So at least there's a little bit of customization there, but it does feel a lot like a filler event, as these events are often wont to do. That being said, as far as the story of the event goes, some interesting twists and turns with this story. It brings us back to the Syndicate arc that began with Aldred's event, and Aldred also features in this, but the story really centers around the character of Farren. He's in a Syndicate jail cell where prisoners are taken out on a daily basis to be experimented with to try to perfect the art of worm binding, and unfortunately a lot of these prisoners that are experimented on pass away or are otherwise never seen again or heard from again, likely because their experiment ended in failure. However, Farren meets a comrade in the jail cell by the name of Jake, and Jake later goes to be known as the captain, who seems to be really nice and even has his own portrait, which makes him seem like a legit character, but ultimately he kind of betrays Farren. He volunteers to get experimented on, but in the hopes of obtaining power and rising up the Syndicate ranks, instead of actually trying to free everybody from the jail that they're locked in, which he colluded with Farren to try to do originally. So he kind of betrays Farren, and when Farren seems like he's not going to make it, they're not going to be able to escape, Aldred actually busts him out of jail, but Aldred ends up fighting with Jake and gets tossed off a cliff. It's a little bit of a silly story. Grace is also on her revenge path as part of this alongside Aldred, and they're attacking different Syndicate bases. Farren is a very optimistic character, but also has survivor's guilt, which is directly said, and a very interesting topic to tackle in Dragalia Lost. Not what I was expecting necessarily, but it's directly mentioned that that's one of the reasons he's always putting himself in harm's way, because he feels like he has to sacrifice himself after seeing what everybody around him went through. Ultimately, he decides that he does want to help people, but for his own motivations, for his own reasons, rather than just trying to kind of give up his own life. And it's interesting the interaction he has with Grace when he comes to this conclusion and kind of builds up the resolve to want to fight against the Syndicate himself. They go back into a base, they fight against Jake, and Jake takes on the title of the captain, and toward the end, some interesting things happen. A character shows up that kind of looks like a Kamen Rider type of character, Power Ranger. It seems like it might be Aldred, but I don't know. That's a very different look and feel for Aldred, so not digging the Power Ranger look necessarily, but I guess it's supposed to be kind of a more complete form of worm binding. It really just wasn't for me, but I could see it being for some people. He shows up, kind of saves the day, frees Little Barb, who, by the way, great character, but he's the sidekick or worm-bound companion to Farren. He saves everybody, and they're trying to determine the identity of the Master. Grace seems to know who it is, but we're left on a cliffhanger where she says that the Master, who is the head of the Syndicate, is somebody that both she and Farren know well. But we don't actually get the name drop or the reveal of who it is, so we're going to have to wait until the next event in the series to learn about that. Maybe it could be Grace's late husband. Perhaps it could be somebody else that they would both know well, maybe like Ferris or something, Yuden's brother, but it doesn't seem like he'd really be, known to them from the Haldum, even though he's a known figure. But he does kind of have the scientific pedigree to work with the Syndicate. It could be Leonidas. It's not something I would put past him with his alchemical experiments of the past. But supposedly the Master is somebody that they know, so I don't have any other strong leads or hunches other than that. Maybe the adventure stories will give more clues, like Grace's late husband perhaps played a role in Farren's life, which could be why that's somebody that they both know well. But anyway, y'all, that is going to do it for today. I think I've said just about all I have to on this Summon Showcase, as well as this event. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.